There we go. We are official. Hey, you guys, good evening and happy Thursday. It's LaRonda Scott with EXP with another Thriving Together. I thank you for joining me this evening because Thriving Together believes that thriving is not just a goal, it is truly a lifestyle. And this evening, I have the pleasure of welcoming Walter Snowden of Aries Valuations LLC. Walter, thank you for joining me this evening. How are you?
Thank you for having me, and I'm always well.
And Walter, forgive me, I'm getting all my words mixed up, is an appraiser, you guys. And the first thing I thought about was him doing his job and being in the trenches because it's cold out there, Walter.
Yeah, well, like I said, at the end of the day, I've been doing this for 20 some years, so it's like you get used to it. I've kind of been out on the hottest day of the year and the coldest day of the year, so got to
So
either be built for it or not. So,
I am not built for it. This North Carolina gal does not know what I should know, but I don't do well in the cold weather. But then again, at this age, I don't do well with hot either. I like it kind of lukewarm.
yeah. So where I grew up, you had to use Vaseline to stay moisturized. So this is nothing for me.
But you know what? I'm a Vaseline girl. People pick at me. My kids call it my clear coat because that is all I use.
Well, see, the problem is where I grew up, if you actually put lotion on, it was like putting on water.
Oh, really? So,
I was
but you said upstate New
upstate New
York.
York near
So,
Buffalo, near Buffalo. So I was in it. I was close to Canada. So
mm,
when that
mm,
hump came
mm,
off them finger legs, you don't know
mm,
what nasty
mm.
is until until lotion feels like water.
But you may, I guess maybe I was a New Yorker in my former life because that legit is what it feels like to me. If it's
No, no,
not,
I
what
mean
is
it
it?
is. It is. It's like literally. It's like putting on lotion. You may as well be putting on water. It's not going to moisturize it. You
It
got to have
doesn't
that.
do anything.
Yeah, you got to have
Mm-mm.
that Vaseline or to to keep from that wind cutting you to the bone.
Mm-mm.
So,
Like the other day, I was running low. I get the con with the cocoa. Look, we're sitting here on the line talking about Vaseline, but I get the cocoa, and I went to what is it, Lidl the other day, and they had huge bottles. I'm like, oh, you're my friend. I think I said that right, Lidl, Lido. I'm not even sure how you pronounce it.
well, see, I keep it at a small jar. I don't want to be confused with Diddy.
See, yeah, I truly enjoy chatting it up with Walter. Walter, I think I have known you now probably maybe about a year, but I swear it feels like I have known you for years, like for decades.
Well, that means that I'm doing my job because ultimately, everybody that I come across, I try to treat them like family because we are. It's like my motto really is every day I try to give a little information and receive some. That's kind of to make a long story short. This is my ministry. This is what I do for a living. This is what I feed my family. This exposed me to a whole lot of people, and as a result, I don't take that for granted.
And you said you've been doing it for 22 years. How were you introduced to it? How did you know that this was going to be your thing?
See, I'm one of these. I knew that this was going to be it because I've tried everything. I mean,
Mhm.
I've worked everywhere. I think the only thing that I haven't done is open heart surgery. And give me next week, I might do that. Um, when I tell you that I am that person that has done everything possible. I mean, I've done
Mhm.
sales. I actually sold windows and siding. I worked at a gas station. I was just that child that I did it all. And what was interesting is that I actually fell into this.
Hmm.
I had um, I actually graduated from NC State, and I was actually planning on going to law school.
Okay.
And I took a break just because I was that student that worked two jobs while going to school full time and so far. So, well, I'll take a break. So I got into trucking. My family actually was part of a trucking company in Virginia Beach. So I started working here. It was called Wilson Trucking.
Mhm.
And when I ended up going through the process, got promoted because I treat every job like I own the place. And so I do what I'm supposed to do. I might not get paid right then, but somewhere down the line I get paid. And
Right.
so with that motto, I ended up becoming the operations manager for Pure Later Products in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And about the time that I was married, bought a house, and had a baby on the way, and I was commuting from Raleigh to Fayetteville every day, they cut my salary by about $40,000. About the time that I was married, bought a house, and had a baby on the way.
Ooh.
That's
And
what it is.
commuting. That was a no-go all the way around.
Right, right. So that's what put me into this. And it was the best decision I've ever made. Oftentimes, what people do is they're scared to move along because it's comfortable. And
Mhm.
then life has a way of making you move on even if you don't want to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, instead of a door closing for you, you're being redirected. It is time for you to go. This is not what you're supposed to be doing. It's time you're supposed to be doing another thing.
And if you keep ignoring it and keep fighting it, you end up getting stuck.
You
And
do.
when you're stuck, you're not happy. If you're not happy, then you can't fulfill your obligation, especially if you have a family, of trying to inspire them to reach their goals and objectives. If you're not happy and you're staying in a situation which doesn't show them that you're progressing towards what makes you happy, because the
Mhm.
people around you, they look at your life, they look at what you do, they look at how you carry yourself, and they
Mhm.
mimic that for the most part, good or bad. So if you're giving them um, a poor sense of self worth, then like I said, when they don't reach their goals, that has a lot to do with them, you pouring into them what's expected of life. And I've always told my kids, what's expected of life is you give it your all.
That's true. Well, I can definitely tell. Again, it feels like I've known you forever. Our interactions between each other are always professional, but like you said, you treat me like family. So I appreciate you, and that's why I was so excited to get you in for a conversation. So we've talked Vaseline, we've talked about life happens. Let's talk about the appraisals. Because of course I wanted to have this conversation as a real estate agent. When I'm working with buyers, even when I'm working with sellers, there is an appraisal process. What is it you think people don't really understand or know what to expect when it comes to that process?
I think that when you start talking about an appraisal, people don't understand how we come up with a value. And as a result, they'll often try to show us things or tell us things that are actually, of very little value.
Mm-hmm.
To keep it simple, your value is really based on where you're located,
Mm-hmm.
how much square footage you have, what amenities you have to offer, and basically the age of the house. Because what is around you dictates your value. So
Mm.
if you turn around and you put in an in-ground pool, for example, but you're kind of in an area where, like I said, it's a little tougher, or it's a market where there's a lot more renters in the market than buyers.
Right.
Sometimes that's an indication that you may not get all the money that you put into a house, especially like an in-ground pool, because the value of the house has to support the income of that community. So if you've got an in-ground pool, a custom in-ground pool where you drop $130,000 for the tile and all the stuff of that nature, and the high end of your market is $250,000, well, chances are you're not going to get what you put into your backyard simply because it was something that you wanted to do. Now, I will say, if that's something that you want to do it by all means, because you make your house live and function the way you want it to. And the truth
Right.
of the matter is, if you hold it long enough, maybe it will. But short term, like I said, if you're topping out at, like I said, 250, $300,000, if you put $150,000 in your backyard, chances are you're not going to realize that input.
Mm-hmm. So, where you're located, your surroundings, square footage, are there some things, some improvements people can make to their home that actually bring value, and others like the pool that they're mistaken about?
Well, whenever you're actually trying to add value to your house, it really is dependent upon what's around you. Some of the questions that I get often are, well, if I put hardwood floors throughout my house, will that increase my value of my house? And my
Mm-hmm.
question is, I don't know. And the reason being is if all your neighbors have hardwood floors and you don't, then you're actually below the market. So if you
Right.
put the hardwoods in, you've actually just brought your house up to the standard. So stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that is hard to engage. it's hard to determine because once again, like, how an appraisal works is I actually look at your house and determine the pluses and minuses for your house. So if everything in the neighborhood is sold, but when it's sold, it was 200 square foot less than yours, then
Mm-hmm.
everything is going to come up in terms of the price per square foot based on your gross livable area or GLA. Conversely, if everything in the neighborhood is 200 square foot more than yours that has been exposed on the market within the last 12 months, yours is going to come down. Stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that you really can't gauge until you actually physically come look at the property and then make the determination whether this is better than the market, this is similar to the market, or this is below market.
Right, right. And well, I do not get in the business of appraising. That's two different things. When we do
Right.
our CMA and when you do the appraisals, I want to remind people it's two different things. But of course, we want to make sure that we're doing a good job and we're picking the right properties. We're taking all those things into consideration when we're giving our professional opinion of a range within, you should list your home or you should purchase a home. But sometimes us real estate agents get a hard time, especially sometimes with sellers when we may recommend a price range. How can you help a sister out when it comes to that?
Well, that's pretty hard, and the reason being for to, there's several issues. The first issue is oftentimes when you're trying to come up with a range, you're making assumptions about the other structures that you're kind of compare it to. And
Right.
the problem is for I won't say you for a second, but we'll say the homeowner. If they go to
Mm-hmm.
Wake County's data is typically wrong. So if you go there and you look at your tax bill and you go look and you see what things have sold for in your on your neighborhood, you're like, this property is 500 square foot less than mine, but it sold for $100,000 more, like $450,000. And it's like, well, the
Mm-hmm.
reality is they finished the third floor, it's permitted, the square footage at the tax office is wrong, and they actually may have 200 or 300 square foot more than you. So I
Mm-hmm.
see that side of it. The other thing too is that when we're doing appraisals, we do appraisals based on an adjusted price per square foot.
You
The
said an
difference
adjusted what now?
adjusted price per square foot.
Got you.
When we're
Okay.
coming up with a value, we look at land value. We look at the condition of the house, square footage, whether you got a one car garage, two car garage, whether you got porch, patio, deck, screen porch, and those things. We weight and adjust those things accordingly based on how the market responds to those items. Once we do
Mm-hmm.
that, then we have a value based on a price per square foot that has been adjusted for the things that we know are different than your property, whether it's a plus or minus. A lot of times realtors will say, well, we'll go with this neighborhood because the price per square foot is similar. So that means that when you do that, it's like, yeah, the price per square foot may be similar, but this one may be a bigger house. This one may have more land. The price per square foot, because they sold for the same thing, but they're not necessarily comparable. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference. When with us, we're not allowed to just pull a comp based on price per square foot. We have to pull a comparable sale that is based on what is actually similar in the market and adjust accordingly. So that's
Yeah.
why you can have these wide ranging values because we're legitimately taking in consideration the actual condition, quality, and so forth, not price per square foot. Because for us, value may be there may be more value in land in this community where it's actually a bigger house or more house in this community, and so they may
Mm-hmm.
wash out in terms of what the market will pay for it, but they're vastly different. If you've got somebody who likes to landscape and wants a nice beautiful yard, they'll take a smaller house with more land versus somebody
Right.
who wants to blacktop the grass and they'll take a bigger house with a smaller lot. Prices may still be the same per square
Now,
foot.
Now, I will say we real estate agents, and I know I may have some agents give me that look like on here, but we are not supposed to pull comps and go by price per square foot either. The things that you're taking into consideration, we should be doing those also. But again, you guys have a training and a science that you use. It just gets a little bit more in depth than we do. But I do have a question for you because there's instances depending on, if you're in a neighborhood, cookie cutter, and houses are pretty equivalent. It gets kind of easy. But then let's say, for instance, you've got a home that's not within a HOA, may not have a lot of neighbors. How do you guys handle that? And what recommendations do you have?
Well, whenever we have something that is an oddball, it then requires you to actually pull on your expertise. I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you the latest example of one of the properties that I had that was the oddball. It was a house that offered 1,010 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
It had a deck supposedly that was like 700 square feet. They actually enclosed a portion of the deck, I think about 400 square foot of it, and it wasn't permitted. On the back side of the house, they had built another bedroom, bathroom, and a little family room that was not. It was a constructed and was pretty decent construction. Didn't have a heat source, window heat. Can't consider it. On the back side of it and outside of the house, there was another 247 square feet that had a bedroom and a full bathroom that also didn't have a heat source.
Did you just shake your head when you went and saw all this?
Well, so then, besides that, there was another area that was detached from the house that was about 203 square foot. That was a bedroom and a bathroom that was not permanent as well. So you had all these
Detached.
structures. You see, what now?
You said it was detached.
Detached,
Okay, I'm just trying to keep up. Go ahead.
and you could see the plumbing, plastic pipes coming from underneath the house to the ground, so that way you could attach it to the rest of the house. So in that scenario, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I've never seen anything like that.
Mm.
And so the process that I went through, first I called the bank and I said, "You're not going to believe this. This is what we got." And then they kept saying to me, "Well, if it's a ADU, then go ahead and do XYZ with ADUs." I kept having to explain to them, it's not an ADU because ADUs have a kitchen. You have to have a fixed heat source. So what ended up happening, to make a long story short, I ended up having to find a property that had a detached, unfinished space that
Mm-hmm.
was unpermitted. Came up with what the market would accepted it for. Went back in time, found something that actually had heated finished space that was unpermitted, and I tried to bracket as much stuff as possible. Once again, couldn't bracket 5 bathrooms because no 1,000 square foot house has 5 bathrooms. But what I
Right.
ended up doing is I ended up costing out everything that was not permitted and different from the market, and then I adjusted what it would cost to bring everything to code, and that's
Mm.
how I was able to come up with value. So the thing is, if you think about it realistically, with 5 bathrooms and 5 bedrooms too, but 5 bathrooms, that's too many bathrooms for 1,000 square foot house, and
It
so it becomes
is.
a situation where it's oversaturated.
Mm-hmm.
But if the person had pulled permits and done what they're supposed to, there still would be a value to it. So basically, I came up with percentages to say this is what it would cost to repair. This is how the market responds to the fact that they got to go through this process of repairing it, and I was able to come up with a value for all the particular areas. But
Right.
like I said, that's kind of how you do the oddball. As a realtor, when you have the oddball, what you typically would have to do basically is find the same oddball, and at that
Mm-hmm.
point in time, at least you have an understanding of what the oddball will go for, even if you have to go back in time and adjust for the fact that the market has changed from the time that that thing sold till now. If you get
Mm-hmm.
something that's like a earth or a geo home or a dome home, you got to find something that has a dome home on it, and then string it through the change in land value, the change in square footage if there's any, and so forth. So always, 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 whenever you're trying to do something dealing with values, find something similar to it. If you got a Dutch villa, at least try to find one Dutch villa. That way it keeps you
Mm-hmm.
safe. Even if it's in a different market or different neighborhood and often a different market or quite a ways
Right.
away, you at least say, well, this is how the market responds for this type of property. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
got like a split level home, a 2 story is not the same thing as a split level. Some people will buy 2 story. A lot of people won't buy split level, and
Right.
you got to factor that into the equation.
Right. I don't know why, but I'm sitting here trying to visualize the house that you just described, but I'll move on.
I'm
So
still trying to visualize it too, and I saw it.
there's just so many things about that. When you talked about the exposed piping, the unpermitting, and then I'm thinking 5 bathrooms. That septic tank is not even gonna hold that.
Well, it
That's a
was it was city. It was city, But the
Oh, it was
problem
thick.
is they had the pipe exposed to the elements. So like this weekend, that pipe might bust. So then you'll
Oh,
have right, because there's a law that like whenever you're dealing with, or the zoning and code is whenever you're dealing with plumbing, it's got to be tucked up underneath the house and insulated.
mm-hmm,
It was just a
mm-hmm,
straight white pipe. Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
So I guess I'm thinking oddball in the other direction because, in terms of when you look at neighborhoods and just calling it what it is, gentrification, to where now you have these. I think in Atlanta, they used to call them mansions back then, but you have these nice, sleek, modern houses in aged neighborhoods with, just older ranch styles. How are you handling those scenarios?
It's the same scenario. What you do is you look at a house similar in square footage, age, location, because even if you have to go back in time, how,
Mm-hmm.
how, how an appraisal operates is that we start on the inside and work our way out. The bank will tell you that you need to find something within 1 mile and sold within 12 months of the appraisal, of the inspection date.
Right.
That's what they want. They can't always
Mm-hmm.
get what you want. So I actually did an appraisal in Fayetteville. I came to Chapel Hill. I
Let
had to
me.
explain. I did an appraisal in Fayetteville, and I had to go
Uh-huh.
all the way to Chapel Hill.
Oh,
What you do though is you explain what you did, why you did it,
right.
and therefore they walk through every step so that way they understand that you're not just picking this one because it's easy to do the appraisal. You explain why you had to go so far, why you excluded this or excluded that, or what the case may be. In this scenario, it was a 10,000 square foot house in Fayetteville. There is not many 10,000 square foot houses that hit the market in Fayetteville. I think it was
Mm-mm.
14 acres. And so, and I think it was an older home as well. So some of that is the reason why I had to go to Chapel Hill, because you don't often
Right.
have older homes sitting on 14 acres, like I said, that have been well maintained just anywhere. So, but the bottom line is a comparable sale is a comparable sale, and you have to find things that will actually make sense rather than making something make sense for the sake of getting it done.
What words of wisdom would you have for sellers? Because oftentimes, when it's your home, one of the things that I do when I start mentally preparing people to put their property on the market is I stop calling it home. I start saying property. We're
Okay.
putting, we're listing your property, we're preparing your property. But of course, when you've got emotional ties to it, you've raised family, you've done things to it, you've done your upgrades, you feel like your house is valued more. And Zillow said, so what words of wisdom do you have for sellers as they prepare to put their property on the market this year?
First thing, what I want to tell you, and the most important thing, is that the only thing that actually increases your value of your property is time. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a shortcut for anything other than time. Yes, you can add more square footage, but time is the actual thing that increases the value of your house. So, the best example, and I'm going to water it down to give you an easy example. If a house is supposed to last for 100 years and your house is 20 years old,
Mm-hmm.
that means you have 80 years left on the value of your house. If you turn around and fix the windows, change the AC, change the roof, put the windows on, yes, your house may live like it's 20 years, I mean, it may be 20 years old, but maybe it only lives like a 5 year old house. At that point in time, now your house has 95 years left. Based
Right.
on that 95 years left, I'm valuing it based on the 95 years, not the 80 years. That is
Mm-hmm.
how you make money on your property, the simplest form.
I like that. Thank you very much for that. Now, I would say for me, the hardest time I ever had when it came to um, coming up with ranges and my professional opinions for my clients was right after COVID. And I know I'm rewinding and going back into time. What was that like for you? Because it almost felt like everything that I had learned to do was almost thrown out the window with the way in which buyers were handling the market. How did you guys handle that?
It was comedy for us. I'm just gonna be perfectly
Comedy.
honest.
I was
Pure
not
comedy.
laughing.
Because what would happen is I'd get this order and I'd look at it. And it was one in Durham. I kid you
Hmm.
not. I looked at it and the house was listed for like 325.
Hmm.
Had a sales contract for 380. I was like, there ain't no way. There ain't no way. And I was like, okay. So what happened is that 2 days before I was going to do the inspection, house
Hmm.
across the street sold. It sold for 370. It was listed for 315. And so by the time I adjusted for the fact that it had a fenced yard, it was a little bigger in square footage. I think I was only like maybe $3,000 or $4,000 off. So I
Really?
went from laughing at the fact that somebody is buying this house for $385,000. It was listed for 325, and I was only like $3,000 or $4,000 off because houses were selling that quick, and the appreciation was well above what's normal.
It was. I mean, it was one of those to where I went back to being in pre-licensing class and buyers dictating the value of a home and driving up costs. I was seeing it for me. That was the first time I've experienced such a market, seeing it happen right in front of my face. But right now we're in a period to where I think buyers are coming around a little bit, and the reason why I say that is because they are so eager for interest rates to get back to where they are that they're not realizing that homes are still appreciating and the cost of homes are still increasing. So what they're looking for is not going to happen, but it's a difficult conversation.
It is, you know, when we were going through COVID, I probably would have bet every dollar that we were going through in a recession
Mhm.
based on the fact that at one time people who were renting homes didn't have to make their tenants didn't have to pay them because they weren't working. And so
Right.
I felt like, okay, when this thing shakes loose, there's going to be houses falling left and right. What I did not anticipate is that because everything shut down, the people who were working couldn't go to the bars and spend $300-400 a weekend drinking. Couldn't go
Mhm.
on trips to spend that other $35 to $4,000. So if they go on two trips, so when COVID came out, and to top it off, the manufacturers weren't manufacturing. So there were no doors and all the materials necessary to build houses. So when
Right.
everybody came out of COVID, people were flushed with cash.
Mhm.
Now the people that were renting were looking to buy a house.
Mhm.
The people that have been sitting on houses for I don't know how long, renting them, was ready to sell them at top dollar. And because there were so many buyers in the market, it just shot everything up because there
It
was
did.
more demand than there was stock. I can
It
remember going to places and they were trying to get garage doors to close the house, and it'd be 4 week back order.
Oh, I lived it in terms of having new construction delays and delays, and HVAC was almost the worst. There were always delays when it came to various elements when it dealt with HVAC and ductwork and things of that nature. But it was tough for a person that enjoys, loves working with first time home buyers and people having the opportunity to acquire homes, affordable options using down payment assistance. That was not the time for my folks. It was a challenge.
Yes, because everybody had cash, and
Everybody had
that's,
cash,
yeah, everybody had cash.
and they were
It was
throwing.
interesting.
They were throwing it. Everybody had cash.
Yeah.
So I want to switch it a little bit though, because I've had people to reach out to me and they've talked about getting into real estate, the real estate industry. And a lot of people, when they think about getting into real estate, their first thought is becoming a licensed agent. But you are a real estate professional and you are an appraiser. Tell me about life as an appraiser, and if someone actually is interested in it, what it looks like to do what you do.
Well, I will tell you now that I've got a terrible boss. I probably work about 110 hours a week, and I'm self-employed. So my boss is terrible. Half the time, my boss don't even
Terrible.
feed me. Don't even
Terrible.
feed me.
He got you
But
out in the cold and everything.
but I will tell you that it's one of the most rewarding um, endeavors that I've ever done because you meet a lot of interesting people. You see a lot of things that make you laugh, and it shows you the good side of life. In terms of, I guess, to make a long story short, we actually do pretty well once you become established.
Hmm.
The average appraiser makes anywhere from $3,000 to $4,000 a week. I say that now, but there you're gonna pay your dues to get there. It's
Right.
hard to get in because you can take the classes. The classes are dirt cheap. You can get them. I think you can get them down for like maybe $900 to $1,200 for
Right.
courses.
Hmm.
Um, the hardest thing is to find somebody to train you because what happens is, in order for you to be trained, someone like me has to slow down to take the time to train you.
Hmm.
Because even if you take your courses, you have to kind of understand how to put together that appraisal for that house that's 1,000 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. You just don't wake up understanding what you need to do to define that problem.
Right.
Um, but I will tell you that once you take the courses, you find a trainer. It's just that there. It's just about the time. It's putting in the work, the effort. The number one thing that you have to have when you're an appraiser, to be perfectly honest, is
Hmm.
integrity. Integrity actually is the key to everything. If you don't have integrity, you won't stay in this business. It's just that hard to stay in because there are a lot of temptations. I've had persons say, well, if you come up with this value, I'll give you an extra $1,000. And so I asked them the question, are you going to give me this $1,000 every day?
Right.
Or, it's just a one-time thing because, your house ain't big enough for my family to move in with you.
Right.
Um, I've had scenarios where the person would, well, this was before we kind of changed things where, banks would call and say, well, if you don't do X, Y, Z, then I'm not going to give you any more work. And I just have
That's
to
not
say, well, I
from
guess I
private
won't.
individuals. That's from banks.
Yeah. And I would
Mhm.
just tell them at that point in time, well, I guess I won't get any more work from you. Because ultimately, I want to be in business forever, not for a few minutes, not for a couple days. And so I understand that more people will actually give me work because I say what I do and I do what I say, and
Mhm.
there's no game if, and and sometimes it's heartbreaking because you'll have a person saying, well, I just need this to make sure that I can kind of make it. And I have to have that conversation with them that, yeah, okay, so let's say I go out and your house is only worth 350 and I get you 375.
Mm.
The time you sign that note, you'll, God forbid, you lose your job. Wife gets sick, child gets sick. You got to put the house on the market. Now, the same person who was your best friend, because I got you 375, is the SOB that made you go out, go and belly up in foreclosure. So the
Yep.
bottom line is, it's like if it's not there, it's not there, and you might not like me now, but I'm keeping you from putting yourself in harm's way. And so that's
Mhm.
the reason why, like I said, I don't compromise simply because I'm doing what's in your best interest, even when you don't believe that I'm doing what's in your best interest.
Right. Which is true. Again, like you said, it may hurt to hear it, but in the long run, you will appreciate someone like yourself having the integrity to give a home and treat it as if, like you've told me, as if you were purchasing it.
Right. Now, I will say this to everybody who's listening. I'm that person that I'll say, if you want to actually get into the appraisal industry, give me a call. She's giving you my number. What I'll do is I'll let you ride with me. I'll let you see what I do. Because that way, you're not in a situation where you're spending money on something that you don't know whether you will like or not. Because ultimately, when you pull over that crawl space and a bug come crawling out of there, that's going to be enough for some folks. And so, if you got to go through
I'm
the
not gonna
bushes, which I try to make sure you don't have to go through the bushes. There's ways. I teach you secrets. But if you have to go through bushes, that like I said, some people are out. So it's like I said, they start hearing all the frogs and the frogs and the crickets and all that stuff, and that's it. Because in some foreclosures, the grass is like 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
like it, don't get me wrong, but the bottom line is that it's always best if you're going to try to get into an industry that you actually see the good and the bad, so that way you can make an educated decision whether it's something that you would actually want to do or not.
right.
The other thing too is that there's all different types of appraising.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get your license, you can actually sit at your house, not leave your house, and do desktop appraisals. And I think they pay you about $150 per appraisal. And there's probably, you can do as many as you want.
Oh,
It
so
won't
there's
take
no
about,
tall grass. There's no tall grass, frogs, and snakes.
no, you sitting up, sitting, sipping lemonade or whatever else you want to
I
sip
can do that.
at your desk, at your desk. Um, but like I said, and then there's really just so many different levels to this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Just recently, I started doing field studies. And you want to talk about robbing people legally. Um, did an appraisal or field study, and for the person was paying in excess of $300 an hour,
Mm-hmm. For you to do
and
this
I
field study.
and I billed them 24 hours.
Ooh.
Right,
Ooh.
and I've done 10 of them, and I think that the least I've charged is 12 hours at excess of $300.
So let's
And
back up a little bit then. So what is the training involved? Because I know you just got somebody to stand up, sit up straight in their chair. Like, wait a minute. So how do I do this? So what is the training and stuff involved? And then, like you said, the I was going to call it mentorship
well,
piece of it.
the whenever you're going to get your certification or your trainee's license,
Mm-hmm.
there's two ways that you can do it. If you do it online, you go at your pace, and it's like I said, it's like 4 courses. Once you take those 4 courses, you have to take a test, a proctor test. Once you take that proctor test, you pass that section, you go on to the next, and then once you become a trainee, that allows you to then solicit to see if you can find people to actually train you. We
Mm-hmm.
have a program called the NC Break, and if you contact them, they'll try to get someone to mentor you to actually get into the appraisal industry. And once that happens, if you came and worked with me, for example, then what we would do is I would teach you the full process from start to finish, how to fill out the forms, why you fill out the forms, what you're looking for. So the first part is just filling out the forms. Then actually you get to the point where you're actually prepping the report. Then we go out and we measure the house, we take the pictures, we go through and we look at what's quality, what is deferred maintenance, what the cost is to repair it. You go through that litany of things. You ride around and look at houses in close proximity, and then you come back, and then you adjust the differences between the house, whether it's square footage, an additional garage, whether it's a carport versus or just a regular driveway. You go through the process of truly trying to figure out what the value is or how you derive the value based on all the steps. Once you do that, like I said, at that point in time, you put the finishing touches on it by making a summary of all the adjustments you made, why you made them, and then you weight your comparables based on I use the criteria generally most recent sold, most
Mm-hmm.
similar in quality and condition, least amount of adjustments. Or, like I said, but through the whole process, you're trying to make sure that you build, for all intents and purposes, you build this box. I've got
Mm-hmm.
something on the high end of the square footage. I've got something on the low end of the square footage. I got two cop properties that sold within 90 days. I try to do 30 within 90 days. I got something to bracket the acreage. I got something to bracket the design of the house. All of those things. And so sometimes I'll end up with 9 comparables because I can't find all of that in one property or three
Mm.
properties. The
Right.
bank typically wants a minimum of 3 comparable sales. Sometimes you only have one. So that all the other stuff is just filler.
Mm-hmm. Where you're
But you just
pulling
got to go
teeth.
through. Yeah, like so you're building Frankenstein. When you start
Right.
talking about that one house that's not different than everybody else, well, I may
Right.
pull one in that neighborhood, and then it may be an older home. Then I adjust for the age, condition, quality, but I'm specifically looking at what the market will do in that neighborhood. Then I go find something that looks similar to it, maybe 10 miles away, and then adjust for the fact that the land value may be different.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so you generally tell the story based on what you're using to compare it to and why you chose to use that particular comparable. So that's the storytelling. The hardest piece whenever you're actually doing the report or training somebody is getting them to understand the full picture. Collecting the data is easy. If it's a brick house, it's a brick house. If it's got
Right.
vinyl, it's that. What the hardest part is them telling the story and make sure they weave that thing through to make sure that everything makes sense. If you
Mm-hmm.
say that, like I said, that the median house value is 200,000 dollars, but your subject's $500,000, and all the houses around it are $500,000,
Right.
you've probably missed the boat somewhere because either you've got too wide of a net, you need to push it down to what's actually similar to it, not everything that's sold within 2 or 3 miles of the property.
Mm-hmm.
But weaving that story is actually where you learn, and that's actually where you make your money, because we all know the best storytellers make the most money.
Yeah, it is. It is. Well, I may shadow you one day on a nice, sunny, warm day when you're not going to a foreclosure and it has high grass and all that jazz.
You are always welcome. You are always welcome.
Because I would need the special conditions. And I'll be honest, when in terms of meeting you and the other appraisers that are with the
Integrate.
association, and yeah, I gave it some serious thoughts, and then I paused and I said, "Now you know."
Well, see, like right now, my trainee, she's
Mm-hmm.
just doing new construction.
Oh, okay. See, yeah, that would
She's
be
doing,
me.
she's doing new construction. Like
Yeah.
now, granted, I will get her to the point where she's doing everything, but right
Okay.
now, I want her to get used to the pattern. I'm doing this. I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
that. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. See now, once she gets to the point where she's got the pattern down, then I can switch it up some because the pattern doesn't change. It's just what you're looking
Right.
for does. So right
Right.
now, she's doing a lot of townhomes and new construction, and she's been in the same neighborhood probably about 20 times, so she's
Mm-hmm.
comfortable with all the stuff. And like I said, eventually I'll start throwing her curveballs. Not something that's just, a head scratcher as much as making her understand that she's got to change her pattern. Because
Yeah.
the biggest thing as a trainee and as a supervisor is you want them to feel comfortable even when it's uncomfortable. And the only way you do that is you got to kind of change and grow.
You do, you do. And that training process you said was 6 months? Is it 6 months? Or it depends on
The company that actually is funding getting more minorities actually into the profession will pay me
Mhm.
up to off the well, I guess it's 6 months. But
Okay.
if it takes her 2 years, it'll take her 2 years.
2 years. It is what it
I'm
is.
not concerned. Yeah, I'm not concerned about that because I'd rather for her to do it right than to rush her through the process.
There you go.
And the truth of the matter is that for the first 6 months, and I'm not. This isn't trying to be funny or whatever. Is that you're typically a liability anyway because you don't know
Mhm.
what you don't know. You think about a new realtor for the first 6 months. But like I said, but as
Reliability for your bit. Yeah.
yeah, but as they start getting that season and so forth, and they really start understanding what's going on, at that point in time, I can give her an order. She can complete it from start to finish, and my
Mhm.
my looking over her shoulder cuts down to about maybe 50 minutes rather than 6 hours right now or seven
Right.
hours.
Right.
In the beginning, it was 10 hours. Now, like I said, slowly but surely, she's down to now where she's done her last 3 or 4 appraisals by herself, and the only thing we're doing is talking about adjustments.
You go,
So she's
girl.
almost to the point where she's ready to fly, and all I gotta do is
Mhm.
say, "This is yours. Don't bother me." Not
Yeah.
like that. I'm always available, but it's one of those things where now, and I'm one of these people that after 50 appraisals, I don't have to show up with her,
Mhm.
but that's not me
Right.
because I'm gonna make sure that she don't make any mistakes all the way through the process.
Right.
Because the
Yeah.
last thing you want to do is shatter somebody's confidence because it's hard to do this. Not from a standpoint of it's difficult. It's a lot of steps. You don't know what you don't know. And most people are uncomfortable trying to figure out something that is complicated in terms of all these steps. But if you got
Mhm.
somebody that's willing to hold your hand and walk with you step by step by step by step, it becomes easy because you develop a process. Once you
Right.
get the process down, it becomes easy. It's just
Develop
learning that process.
develop a process, and you help them have the confidence as well because it's
Right.
just the way in which you do it, the way you handle it.
And there's not a whole lot of black women in this profession in the first place. So you definitely don't want to shatter their confidence. Now, I ain't got to worry about her because she's a math teacher. So,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, she's a math teacher. So,
I remember that. So yeah, she's already coming in my opinion compared to me a step ahead.
well, it's not really the math, it's the fact that she's always already had to deal with crazy people. So she got that part down. Anytime you're dealing with kids. So it's like, but at the end of I'm a comedian, so don't mind me. But no, it's really one of those things where she was comfortable with measuring a house and those things because she's comfortable with math. You
Right.
don't necessarily have to be comfortable with math in order to do this. You just have to be
Hmm.
willing to actually get out there and learn because it's not rocket science. It's like whenever you're measuring something, you measure all the corners.
Hmm.
You'll eventually get there.
Right. Well, Walter, thank you very much for being on the stage with me this evening. I want to put your information up once again in terms of so people know how to get in touch with you, the name of your company. And I don't know if you have any final words or anything before we
I will
go.
say, I will say that I am a genuine person. When I say something, I mean it. I'm not sitting here saying, well, if you do such and such, and then you call me and I act like I don't know you. That's not who I am. That's never who I've been. And so at the end of the day, if I'm telling you, I don't mind you calling me. I don't mind you asking me a question. Now, I will preface it by saying, don't call me trying to get a full appraisal over the phone. Yeah, I will. If you say, well, I'm thinking about doing this, I may be able to say, well, did you stop and consider this? Did you stop and consider this? Or what about this? Or, well, what is your name? I don't mind you asking me questions. Like I said, just don't try to get me to, like I said, diagnose what you got going on from the phone.
Right. Right.
So,
And I am co-signing on what he just said. He is everything that he just said. And when he said he's gonna do a thing, he does it. When he says he's gonna show up, he's gonna show up. Will even go out of his way to make sure that he's showing up and being a man of his word. So again, thank you, Walter, for being with me this evening. I do highly encourage folks to get in touch with you in regards to appraising when it comes to looking at homes, valuations, field studies. If you're looking at getting into the industry, this is who you want to have a conversation with. And as always, here's my information. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest, this is how you can get in touch with me. I saw your finger go up.
I wanted to say this. If you're actually looking to get into investing,
Hmm.
taking the appraisal courses would probably be beneficial to you because
Hmm.
it helps you buy, it helps you kind of understand how the market responds, and it makes you a better investor overall. So I will say that if nothing else, if it's not about you actually getting in and doing the appraisal process, if you're looking at investing, I would take 1 or 2 appraisal courses, even though you're not necessarily trying to become an appraiser, so you understand what it's about, and it may give you insight and it'll help you become a shrewd investor over the long haul.
That is great to know. You know what we forgot to talk about? We might have to do a part two. Is I remember you taught a class recently about AI and appraising, and AI is showing up in everything. So that's going to be another conversation we have at a later date.
If you call, I'm there. It's not a big deal. You let me
I
know.
know. I know. Well,
It's
you
no problem.
have a great night, you guys. I will see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. We've got a new topic because, again, thriving is not just a goal, it's a lifestyle. See you
And it's
next
not an
time.
accident either.
No, it is not an accident, it is very intentional. Thank you, Walter.
Take care.